Your top story at this hour, Huffington Post has come under fire for publishing a dubious blog post. The blog, published on the South African version of the site, advocated stripping white men of their right to vote. The post, titled "Could It Be Time to Deny White Men the Franchise?" was later removed by the website after the credibility of its author came under the scanner. The blog writer, who claimed to be an activist and feminist completing a Master of Arts degree in philosophy, could not be traced and appears not to exist as per the publication's own admission. The article and its subsequent removal has raised several question marks over Huffington Post's credibility. Huffington Post is being questioned over publishing a divisive blog without verifying the credentials of the author. Huffington Post criticized by several for publishing and even defending an irresponsible blog that considered merits of disenfranchising the white people. Huffington Post editorial leadership has also been questioned for rejoicing an irresponsible opinion for the number of website hits it generated. Huffington Post retracted the article later after doubts emerged that the blog writer, Shelley Garland, may be fake. Shelley Garland reportedly admitted that the piece was apparently written by Huffington Post to hide their agenda. Huffington Post editor later claimed that the blog was withdrawn since Shelley Garland cannot be traced and appears not to exist. Now joining us is William Bird, Director Media Monitoring Africa, as well as Verlius Stays and social media expert. A very warm welcome to you. I'll start with William Bird. The Huffington Post incident has again brought the questions being raised around media integrity into sharp focus. What is your opinion on this?
Well, look, clearly it's a profoundly unfortunate incident that highlights, the impacts that technology has had on our media organizations. We're seeing fewer and fewer journalists being left to be checking and making sure that there's appropriate quality control. And what this shows is that it would appear there wasn't any kind of quality control before putting the piece up. And I think that that's pretty surprising given the kinds of opinions that were expressed in this particular piece. And, and I think that media have to take responsibility. If you put something up on your site, you need to say we put it up there and we take responsibility for it. And this is what happened. This is what happens if it went wrong. And these are the steps we're going to take to remedy it and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Now, Mr. Bird, you're talking about quality control. What exactly is the procedure when we're talking about quality control when it comes to blogs being put out to be seen by other people?
So, look, I think the first thing is that you need to make sure that you check who the person is and you check it for its content. I mean, you can't just put something up just because they might be saying something mildly controversial. You need to check the content, check its general veracity. It's one thing for people to express opinions. It's quite another for them to express opinions that are going to be very controversial and ones that don't have any kind of validity or justification. And if that is the case, you would hope that there would have been enough alarm bells ringing, as there should have been in this instance, for them to say, hold on a moment, let's just check where this piece actually comes from before we decide to go and put it up.
And now, this incident doesn't merely raise questions of not following the well-laid-down process of verification of credentials before giving people a platform to air their divergent views, but it also questions the editorial judgment applied in vetting the blog, which some say was not only highly divisive and racial in tone, but goes against the basic principle of democracy, which media is supposed to uphold.
So, look, I think that clearly there was a complete lapse in appropriate process and procedures that allowed this piece to be put up. I think the real question we need to ask is who would want to actually put this piece up and why did they seek to do this? Knowing that it would probably be identified and bring the media house into disrepute, I think we need to be asking what the motives of the person who wrote this would actually be. So, look, there's no question that clearly the systems did not kick in and that they didn't work. and that the media and that the Huffington Post needs to take accountability for that. But I think we also need to be asking the bigger question around this as to who would actually seek to bring the media into disrepute in this particular manner.
And now also joining us is Verluis Dazen, and he's a social media expert, and he joins us on the phone line. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Now, the Huffington Post incident has again brought the questions being raised around media integrity to sharp focus. What is your opinion to this, looking at the social media and how they reacted to such a blog that was taken out?
Well, this case has been extremely interesting and has actually exposed the darker side, especially when dealing with these kind of social media posts generated by bloggers, and how important it is to vet the piece before leaping to its defense. And I think that was the biggest problem with this, is not just the fact that it was published without any real due process taking place. It was the fact that the editor jumped to the defense of the piece very vociferously and actually said that it was an opinion that was widely held by feminists worldwide. And she obviously didn't do any credential fact-checking herself before actually coming to the defense of the piece. And that seems to be the biggest problem. Now, if you look at what has been happening in social media today, it's clear that this piece was actually generated in order to show that certain agendas are always getting put out into the liberal media. And somebody actually took the view that they would show that even a complete piece of drivel could be put out and could try and advance an agenda that is highly inflammatory, very racist, and misogynistic.
And now, what is your take on the quality control, as well as how the procedure was supposed to turn out? Because as we realize, it seems as though only when the social media intervened, that was the only time that post was taken off.
Yes, that's a massive problem. The fact is that there's actually been an excellent expose on this piece by the Renegade Report. And they've said, and they went through the whole process and exactly how this piece was vetted by the Huffington Post and the timeline. And it shows very clearly that there was a complete failure in the verification process. Apparently, this piece was also sent to the Daily Maverick, and they rejected the post. So it seems to be a failure at the Huffington Post itself.
And I'm just going to bring in Mr. Bird, who is still joining us. Now, we know that South African media is replete with examples of distortion of news, and most of these distortions are seen around contentious issues in politics as well as business. Does this trend give credence to suspicions that news distortion or fake news is being used to achieve political as well as business objectives by their owners?
Look, I don't know about those things, but what I think we clearly need to pay attention to is the fact that we are in a very difficult position in South Africa at the moment. You know, politically, I don't think we've experienced this kind of heightened level of tensions within our country since we've become a democracy. And so I think that we're seeing, certain discourses being highlighted and certain discourses being elevated. The issue of race and racism deliberately used as a tactic by some, and we need to make sure that the media's role in this must be make sure that we promote the issue of dialogue, promote discussion and plurality of ideas, and that we don't encourage pieces that are going to somehow facilitate or encourage further violence or encourage or heighten that tension even further, because I think that we are dangerously close otherwise to encouraging people to take discourse to an even more extreme level. So I think for me, one of the critical lessons from this must be that media houses have to make sure that they are exercising exceptional care when they decide what to publish and what not to publish, and that they make this a routine issue. Because in as much as it does affect just the Huffington Post in this instance, it certainly also raises questions, therefore, about all of the media in South Africa. And that's not a good thing for our democracy. It's not a good thing for any of our media per se. And so it's something that, as I said, this particular moment in our history where tensions are so extraordinarily high, we really must make sure that everyone does the best that they possibly can to ensure that they don't drop the ball. And this is an instance where Huffington Post has dropped the ball in a fairly profound manner, and it's going to have some fairly significant repercussions, and trying to make sure that people know that they can and should trust the media more broadly. Again, it then becomes a question of saying, well, which media should you trust? And you need to be clear on media that you know who's behind it, that you know that they've got a track record, and that we can identify the journalists and the media houses. Because what we're seeing, and as much as this is an issue that's affected Huffington Post, we've seen an explosion of fake news sites, of sites that claim to be running legitimate news, and they certainly are getting a lot of traction. So it really is something that isn't just a political question, but something that the media houses and media professionals need to work together to try and address.
And now, can we just look at this example where there was noise around the nuclear deal? We have seen several reports, some claiming that the nuclear deal has already been signed, others claiming Zuma has already got kickback money in his account. Some even giving credence to Fakey Mentor's claims that the new finance minister, Minister Gigaba, has even signed the nuclear deal. All of this has been published along with the official denials and an absence of any proof as well. Surely rumor mongering can't be counted as the media's job.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that those are all good examples of instances where there's a bigger story in the mix. We're seeing any number of social media accounts being used to promote particular vested interests. We've seen attacks on some of our legitimate media where people pretended to set their Twitter handles up as those accounts, and they've spread quite vicious and malicious rumors about all of them, as well as some of the people behind them. I think that, again, as I've said, the best thing for professional journalists to do is to make sure that they do their job and to do it to the best of their ability. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we highlight those that are seeking to undermine our democracy. Because to be clear, in as much as the Huffington Post systems failed, someone deliberately sought to inflame things in South Africa, and someone sought deliberately to try and bring our media into disrepute. And we need to question who those people are that are doing that, and just what would motivate them to seek to do that.
All right, I'm going to take a look with Ferlio Stazen, the social media expert. Let's look at the selective campaigns which are supported by the media. While media houses love to take strong positions against perceived corruption in the government, that they are soft on corporate corruption, they were even reluctant to term rand fixing by SA banks and other incidents of market allocation, as well as price fixing by South African corporates as acts of corruption. And now some even went on the extra mile to portray these as isolated irregularities instead of probing if there were signs of institutionalized corruption. What is your take on this?
Well, I'm not going to give my opinion on those specific instances that you've given, but I think that we've got to accept that various media houses are going to be more aligned to particular agendas, or are going to be more liberal or more conservative in their views. And obviously, they may be more sympathetic to those kind of views. The point of the whole matter is that they have a certain journalistic ethics that they have to uphold. There is usually some kind of oversight committee, and if there isn't, people should be holding them to the account of that. They are usually professionals that have been sent to university to learn about basic journalistic ethics. And so if they are sending out news that is not correct, or they're pandering very specifically to a particular agenda, and they're not giving the other side an opportunity to state their side of the case, then it becomes a huge problem, and people can make complaints about those kind of things. But I think that we do have to accept that in any society there's going to be certain journalistic houses that are going to have particular sympathies.
And what do you make of negative reporting that goes out, which is from the media? And we have also on Twitter where people come in and actually discuss this and most probably have almost sort of like a dialogue on whether this was right or if it was appropriate. What is your take in terms of that when it reaches the social media platform?
Well, the whole point in a democracy is to have some level or quite a high level of freedom of expression, and I think it's important that that isn't stifled. And to just say that there's fake news or that somebody's driving a particular agenda doesn't deal with the issue, actually. people need to be able to discuss things, and people need to have a dialogue. Obviously, when it extends to the point of hate speech or it's promoting violence against other people, then it becomes more of a problem. But I think that in any strong democracy such as the USA is actually a strong democracy, or the UK, people are allowed to discuss these things. They're allowed to go onto social media and discuss them. And if they're exposed as a fraud or someone that doesn't have any knowledge in it, then that does come out. It just becomes a very, very big problem when it's inciting violence.
All right. Thank you very much for that. That was Veli Oosthuizen, a social media expert, just giving us some more details, a discussion over there carrying out on the Huffington Post, which has come under fire for publishing a dubious blog post over there. And the blog was published on the South African version of the site, advocated stripping white men of their right to vote. And we also had another guest who was joining us on the Skype, Willem Bird, Director Media Monitoring Africa. Thank you very much for those details over there.